Hey everybody, welcome to more Political Excess. Today we've got another far-fetched hypothetical 2024 presidential matchup. This time it is going to be Jared Polis for the Democrats. He is the current governor of Colorado, up against Charlie Baker for the Republicans. He is the outgoing governor of Massachusetts. There's no way this is ever happening. It's just for fun. So let's get into it. Safe states are over a 10-point margin, likely 5 to 10 points, lean under 5 points, and tilt 1 point or less. Now, this matchup was difficult to do because Charlie Baker is viewed as an extremely light, very mild Republican. I'm not even sure how to describe him, probably more so a social liberal, economic moderate, and he would have a limited appeal in certain parts of the country. Of course, he would be much more palatable in the suburbs compared to someone like Donald Trump would be. And Jared Polis in Colorado, he is popular. He seems to be governing in a way that's not on the fringe, and he's not really all that off-putting from what I can tell. Now, one other thing to mention is I'm not really sure what kind of platform Charlie Baker would run on. To me, it's quite obvious that most Republican voters, the base, they would rather stay home than support Charlie Baker. Because on many of the issues, I'm not going to see a lot of difference between these two candidates. And I don't think the Republican base is going to take Charlie Baker seriously. They're not going to believe if he tries to talk up any of the issues they care about. Jared Polis, he would probably be a natural in the Democratic Party. They might try to pull him a little bit farther left, but either way, he would probably run a much smoother campaign than someone like Baker. Even though Baker was one of the most popular governors in the country, I don't think his popularity in Massachusetts would translate at all to the vast majority of the other states. So some of these margins are going to be a little bit different, but let's start in Alaska. That I have as a likely for Charlie Baker. I'm really not even sure on this one. The overall lean of the state is toward the Republicans, but Jared Polis, he's probably not even a bad fit for Alaska. Most people are not going to turn out for Charlie Baker, as will be the case with many of these states, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and still say Baker wins by over 5 points. Let's go to Hawaii. That'll be an easy safe for Jared Polis. Let's go back up to the West Coast. Washington, Oregon, California. Those will all be safe for Jared Polis. So let's move on to Nevada. That'll be a likely for Jared Polis. I think the working class, again, is either going to stay home or actually come out for Jared Polis. Charlie Baker is going to have no appeal in Nevada. Idaho and Utah, those will still stay safe for Charlie Baker. They're just too red-leaning for Polis to really make inroads, but I think he would do much better than most other Democrats would going up against Baker. Arizona, that'll be likely for Jared Polis. Again, Republican voters are going to stay home, and that would give Jared Polis a fairly comfortable win. Up to Montana, this I have as a likely for Charlie Baker. Just under double digits. I think a lot of these voters, again, would stay home. Some would actually cross over and vote for Jared Polis at a state like Montana. But in the end, the lean of the state on a presidential level, I think Charlie Baker wins it. Wyoming, safe for Baker. Colorado, of course, Polis' home state would be very safe for him. New Mexico, that'll also be safe for Polis. North Dakota and South Dakota, still safe for Charlie Baker. Nebraska at large, low double digits, safe for Baker. The 2nd district with Omaha, this is a district that Charlie Baker actually probably would have more appeal in. It's very suburban. However, when going up against Polis, I just think a lot of those voters would rather vote for the Democrat instead of someone just barely to the right of him. Now, the 1st district that is outside of Omaha, that I have as a likely for Baker. It's a much redder district, but I still think a lot of those voters rather come out for anybody than Charlie Baker, but he would still win it by over 5 points. Kansas, I have that just under a 10-point margin, likely for Charlie Baker. Oklahoma, safe for Baker. Texas, that I have as a lean for Baker. This was a tough call. I think hardly anybody's going to want to come out for Baker, as I've been saying over and over in this video. I don't think Polis would be a horrible fit for the state. So I think this would actually get close to flipping, probably only 1 to 3 points. Up to Minnesota, safe for Jared Polis. Iowa, this will be a lean for Charlie Baker. Similar story. Nobody wants to support Baker. Polis would actually get close to flipping Iowa. Missouri, this will be a likely for Baker. Again, it gets under a 10-point margin with a weak candidate like Charlie Baker for the Republicans. Arkansas, Louisiana, safe for Charlie Baker. As we get more into the South, I think neither of these candidates are going to have much appeal, but a lot of times they'll just default to their typical partisan lean. Let's go up to Wisconsin. This will be a lean for Jared Polis. Yes, Charlie Baker might do a little bit better in some of the suburbs around Milwaukee, maybe even a little bit better in Dane County. but I just see Jared Polis winning this relatively comfortably. Illinois, safe for Jared Polis. In some of these blue states, like Illinois, the margin for Jared Polis might be reduced because some of those voters in and around Cook County might be more amenable to someone like Charlie Baker, but Polis would still win that by over 10 points. Let's go to Michigan. That'll be likely for Jared Polis. The blue collar and the working class, they're not really coming out for Charlie Baker. Trump voters, I can't imagine 90% of them wanting to come out and support Charlie Baker. The few that do are probably only coming out just to support their party. It's not going to be nearly enough to outweigh the big margin that Jared Polis would win there. Indiana, that I have as a likely for Baker. I think that would get under a 10-point margin for the reasons I've already laid out. Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama I still think would be safe for Charlie Baker. How about down in Florida? Tough call. I put it as a tilt for Charlie Baker. The state is trended toward the right. I see both these candidates having some of their weakest appeal in a state like Florida, so I think it could go either way, but in the end, I'll give it narrowly to Baker by under 1 point. Up to Georgia, that'll be a lean for Jared Polis. In the suburbs around Atlanta, I think Baker would do a little bit better than someone like Trump, but of course those red Trump counties, they're going to sit out, and Jared Polis is going to win this probably by at least 3 points. Up to South Carolina, that I also have under a 10-point margin and a likely for Charlie Baker. Up to North Carolina, that I have as a tilt for Jared Polis. Due to most of the Republican base turning out a lower margin, that'll be enough for Jared Polis to be able to flip the state and win it narrowly. Let's go to Ohio. That is a lean for Charlie Baker. I think Ohio is trended enough to the right where almost any Republican would be able to win it for president, but I think it would actually be close. But Charlie Baker would still end up winning it by a few points. West Virginia, that'll be safe for Charlie Baker. I know they're not going to like him there, but they're going to be much more interested in voting against Jared Polis. How about in Maine? At large, safe for Polis. The 1st district, safe for Polis. The 2nd district, that'll be a tilt for Charlie Baker. That is a much more Trump-style district, but with Trump not on the ballot and a liberal Republican on the ballot, they're not going to come out, but I guess he would still win it narrowly, but I could still see Polis winning that by a few points. New Hampshire, this will be a lean for Charlie Baker. This is a state I see Charlie Baker having the most potential to actually flip. It's in the Northeast. It's more highly educated. They're not nearly going to be as against Charlie Baker as they would someone like Trump, so Baker would win this by a couple of points. Vermont, New York, safe for Polis. How about in Massachusetts? That would be Charlie Baker's home state. Well, on a national level, Massachusetts is one of the bluest states, and I don't think that would change, so I'll give it to Polis, but I'll take it all the way down to a lean margin. I know they're going to support Charlie Baker there. I don't think it would flip. I think it could easily get under 10 points, and I'm going to go out on a limb and actually say it gets under 5. Connecticut, that'll be likely for Polis. Rhode Island, that'll be likely for Polis. These are a couple more states in the Northeast where I think the margin would actually shift in favor of Charlie Baker, as his style of governing is going to be more palatable for those voters there. New Jersey, on the other hand, would stay safe for Jared Polis. Delaware, that also will get under 10 points, I'll say, and it would be likely for Polis. Maryland will be safe for Polis. Washington, D.C., safe for Polis. How about Pennsylvania? It's a little tough, but I will say lean for Jared Polis. Borderline likely. I think the voters outside of Philadelphia, Bucks and Montgomery County, Delaware, I think enough of them would actually want to support Charlie Baker. That I think would outweigh a lot of the rural red counties who would sit it out, but it would still result in Polis picking it up by a lean. And finally, the last state is Virginia. This will be a likely for Jared Polis. You might think the northern Virginia counties, they would support a liberal Republican like Charlie Baker. I'm sure they would have 15 or 20 years ago. There's going to be far more of the red counties that do not turn out to support Baker. Polis would win Virginia, and that is my map, and that would result in 223 electoral votes for Charlie Baker, 315 for Jared Polis. Polis would win this pretty easily, actually. At least that's how I see it going. There's only a few states where Charlie Baker would do better in. Most of them, Jared Polis would do 4 or 5 points better than most of the typical Republican candidates. It's not really a surprise, but I don't really see a place for Charlie Baker in the Republican Party. He was able to get it done in Massachusetts somehow, but I don't really think he excites anybody. And in most cases, I probably think he would be better suited running as a Democrat. So anyway, that is the map I settled on. Let me know in the comments, do you mostly agree with this map or do you disagree with 4 or 5 of these states? Let me know down below. And if you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.